the Minority Leader, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, MP for Tamale South, to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
National Chairman of our great party, very distinguished, supportive National Executive Committee members of our great party, Uncle Totobi Kwachi, as supportive as he's always remained with their Church Street Group, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media, my own colleagues from Parliament, and other functionaries of the NDC in your very different capacities. The Dagombe say that when you see a pregnant goat in the market, it means there is a pregnant problem at home. It is not ordinary at 9 p.m. for you to be told and informed that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the leader and flag bearer of the NDC, and the next president of Ghana to be, will be addressing the press. As many of you are already aware, the Supreme Court of Ghana has given a ruling in the matter relative to Article 42. A ruling, you know, the Supreme Court, the apex court of our land, which is clothed with the power and mandate for adjudication and interpretation. It's only instructive, and that is why we are here. That the Supreme Court will give a ruling with blurred edges and with synthetical ambiguities. That the very Supreme Court, which has a primary responsibility and duty to throw light and to interpret to avoid absurdity, itself will give a ruling which consequence is absurdity. And therefore, the only person who can calm nerves and get Ghanaians committed to the pursuit of the entitled and guaranteed rights under Article 42 is no mean the person than John Dramani Mahama. I have the singular honor to hand over the mic to him to speak to the country on this matter. Mr. President, Excellency.
Thank you, my brothers and sisters. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, earlier today, the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana gave its ruling in a case brought by the National Democratic Congress against the Electoral Commission of Ghana over its decision to compile a new voters' register. Despite the well-reasoned reliefs we sought, the apex court of our land has given a leeway for the Electoral Commission to go ahead with the exclusion of the existing voter identification card from the list of identification requirements for the registration for the register. My brothers and sisters, we're deeply disappointed and we strongly disagree with the court over this outcome, which has confounded many legal experts and indeed has thrown the whole country into a state of confusion. Our legal team is examining this decision even as we await the full reasons for this judgment. It is also worrying that the court deferred the reasons for its decision to the 15th of July, a date by which time the EC would have been 2 weeks into the said registration exercise. My brothers and sisters, throughout its history, the NDC has stood strongly for an inclusive democracy. That is because our party is built on the principle that no one should be left out in the governance process of Ghana. This principle may be seen through the various programs and projects upon which our democracy is built. The composition of the Consultative Assembly, with the 1992 Constitution, view of the Constitution in 2010, which stands out as the most comprehensive consultative consistently puts in place measures which seek to systematically disenfranchise eligible citizens of this nation. Such measures include restricting the identification mechanism for voter registration to documents which are not accessible currently to millions of eligible Ghanaian voters. We have been very clear in our minds that the decision to compile a new voters register was in pursuit of this long-held agenda. Hence our efforts to stop the wholesale attempt to exclude vast sections of our population from the process to determine who leads them. This represents the handiwork of a desperate incumbent that, on account of its very poor performance in government, sees its very political survival only through the prism of manipulation of the electoral process to exclude a section of Ghanaians who they suspect may not renew their mandate at the polls. A caring, compassionate, and responsible government would not push us to the brink at a time of a major pandemic such as COVID-19 that is causing so much anguish amongst our citizens. It is deeply regrettable that the Electoral Commission, which should be independent and has carved a niche for itself as a well-respected commission in the whole of Africa, has today made itself a willing tool in the execution of this most diabolic agenda. This mandate is aimed at deliberately disenfranchising some Ghanaians who have falsely been foreigners without any basis. party's time-honored belief and commitment to an inclusive democracy as opposed to the MPP's exclusiveness. However, it was obvious from the outset of this struggle that inclusive democracy was not going to have a hearing, even against the resounding calls by the National House of Chiefs, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and various trade and professional groups. My brothers and sisters, the right to vote must, however, not be curtailed on account of this minor setback. We cannot throw our hands up in despair because the fight to insist on inclusion has been temporarily derailed by this ruling of the Supreme Court. We can still make our voices heard